The silent void of space stretched before the HSS Defiant as it moved through the uncharted sector. Captain Jiwoo Park sat in her command chair, eyes fixed on the main viewscreen. The exploration vessel was small by military standards, designed for scientific missions rather than combat. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings ahead," said Science Officer Hyunsu, her fingers moving quickly across her console. "They're unlike anything in our database." Ji-woo leaned forward. On screen, maximum magnification. The viewscreen shifted, revealing distant points of light that grew larger as the computer enhanced the image. What appeared were not stars, but ships, hundreds of them, moving in perfect formation. "Are those warships?" asked Taeho from the communications station. Hyunsu nodded. "Each one heavily armed. The smallest appears to be twice our size." The bridge fell silent as the crew took in the sight. The alien armada was massive, their ships dark and angular with glowing red energy signatures. They moved with military precision that spoke of extensive experience. "Standard first contact protocols," Jiwoo ordered. "Taeho, open all communication channels and transmit our greeting package." "Transmitting now, Captain," Taeho replied, his voice steady despite the tension. Minutes passed with no response. The alien fleet maintained its course, seemingly oblivious to the human vessel. "They must have detected us by now," said Du Young, the security chief. "Our sensors picked them up, so their technology must be at least as advanced as ours." Ji-woo frowned. "Taeho, try again. All frequencies." The communications officer sent the message once more. Still nothing. The alien fleet continued its movement, completely ignoring the human ship. "Captain," Hyunsu called out, her voice tight with concern. "I've been analyzing their flight path. They've passed through 6 star systems in the last month. Each system had inhabited planets before their arrival." "And after?" Ji-woo asked, though she suspected the answer. "Nothing. Complete destruction of all settlements. No survivors detected." The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Ji-woo stood up and walked closer to the viewscreen, studying the alien vessels. "They're heading toward populated space," she realized. "Directly toward our colonies." "Should we retreat and warn Earth?" asked the navigation officer. Ji-woo shook her head. "Not yet. We need more information first." She turned to Taeho. "Try a direct approach. Simple message, basic mathematical sequences to establish understanding." Taeho sent the new message. One of the smaller alien ships briefly changed course, scanning the Defiant before returning to formation. Still no response. "They scanned us," Hyunsu confirmed. "They know we're here. They just don't care." Ji-woo's expression hardened. "Bring us closer, but maintain a safe distance. I want detailed scans of their weapons and defenses." As the Defiant moved closer to the alien fleet, they intercepted communications between the ships. Taeho worked to translate the strange language. "I've got something," he said eventually. "It's not perfect, but I think I understand their name for themselves. They call their empire the Kralvor." Over the next hours, the Defiant shadowed the alien fleet, gathering as much data as possible. The translation program slowly decoded more of their communications. "Captain," Taeho called out, his face pale. "I've translated more of their transmissions. They discuss the inhabited worlds as harvesting grounds. They don't even classify the species they destroy as sentient. Just resources." Ji-woo stood by the science station, reviewing the data. "And what about us? Have they mentioned our ship at all?" Hyunsu shook her head. "From what we can tell, they've classified us as non-threatening. Too small to be of concern. They think we're insignificant," Du-young said, anger in his voice. "Good," Ji-woo replied, surprising the crew. "Their arrogance gives us an advantage. While they ignore us, we can gather intelligence." A sudden alert sounded from Hyunsu's station. "Captain, they've changed course. They're now heading directly toward Proxima Colony." At their current speed, they'll reach it in less than a week. Jiwoo's face set with determination. Plot an intercept course back to Earth space. We need to warn our people. She looked once more at the massive fleet on the viewscreen. The Kralvor have made their first mistake. They should never have ignored us. The Defiance engines pushed to maximum capacity as Captain Jiwoo plotted the fastest route back to Earth space. Every crew member felt the weight of their mission. They carried information that could save billions of lives. We need to stay ahead of them, Jiwoo said, studying the tactical display. The massive Kralvor fleet moved with frightening purpose toward Proxima Colony, home to over 3 million human settlers. Captain, 2 vessels have broken formation, Hyunsu reported, her eyes fixed on her scanner. They're moving to intercept us. Jiwoo's expression remained calm despite the danger. They've finally noticed the fly buzzing around their dinner. The 2 Kralvor scout ships were sleek and fast, 3 times the size of the Defiant. They accelerated quickly, their engines glowing bright against the darkness of space. Can we outrun them? Jiwoo asked her navigation officer. Not likely, Captain. They'll intercept us before we reach the jump point. Jiwoo considered their options. We need to get our data to Earth, even if we don't make it ourselves. She turned to Tae-ho. Prepare a compressed data burst with everything we've gathered. Include our sensor logs and translations. As Tae-ho worked, the Kralvor ships closed in. The Defiant shuddered as energy weapons grazed their shields. Shields at 80%, Du Young reported. Their weapons are powerful but not precise. They still don't consider us a serious threat. Jiwoo's mind raced. There's an asteroid field at coordinates 227 Mark 44. Can we reach it? Yes, Captain. It's dense but navigable with our size. Set course. Full speed. The Defiant changed direction, drawing confused fire from the pursuing scouts. As they approached the asteroid field, Jiwoo gave her next order. Tae-ho, transmit the data burst now, wide spectrum, maximum power. Make sure Earth receives it. Tae-ho's fingers flew across his console. Transmitting, signal sent, Captain. Confirmation received from Outpost Sierra. Just as the transmission completed, the Defiant dove into the asteroid field. The massive rocks provided cover as the smaller human ship weaved between them. The Kralvor scouts hesitated at the edge of the field. They're not following, Hyunsu said with surprise. They're returning to the main fleet. Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. As I thought. They won't risk damage to their ships for something they consider insignificant. The crew watched as the scouts rejoined the main fleet, which continued its unstoppable march toward human space. We're safe for now, Jiwoo said, but our mission isn't over. We need to keep tracking them. Admiral Sunho Lee stared at the data streaming across his screen in the Earth Defense Command Center. His normally composed face showed rare concern as he reviewed the Defiant's findings. How reliable is this information? He asked the communications officer. The signal integrity was perfect, sir. And Captain Park is one of our most trusted commanders. Sunho nodded gravely. Then we face an extinction-level threat. He pressed a button on his console. General Quarters. All fleet commands on emergency standby. Alarms sounded throughout the command center as officers rushed to their stations. Sunho called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. The Kralvor fleet will reach Proxima Colony in 5 days, he explained to the assembled leaders. Based on their previous actions, they will destroy it completely. We don't have enough ships to stop them through conventional means. What about evacuation? Asked one council member. We've already sent the order, but Proxima has 3 million people. We can move perhaps 10% in the time we have. The room fell silent as the reality sank in. There might be another way, said Chief Scientist Min Ki, who had been analyzing the Defiance data. Captain Park's science officer discovered something interesting about the Kralvor shields. They operate on a specific quantum frequency. Sunho leaned forward. Can we exploit that? Possibly. Our quantum resonance drive technology might be modified to disrupt their shields. It's theoretical, but make it happen, Sun Ho ordered. Gather every scientist you need. As the meeting continued, Sun Ho received an unexpected update. Admiral, we're receiving new transmissions from the Defiant. They're still out there, shadowing the Kralvor fleet. Sun Ho was surprised. Captain Park is continuing her mission? Yes, sir. She's sending tactical updates on Kralvor movements and more shield frequency data. For the first time that day, Sun Ho felt a glimmer of hope. Tell Captain Park to stay safe but keep the information coming. Her ship may be our best chance at finding a weakness in this enemy. In the vastness of space, aboard the tiny Defiant, Jiwoo and her crew continued their dangerous mission, watching the aliens who had dismissed them as harmless. The Kralvor's ignorance would become humanity's greatest advantage. The Defiant drifted silently behind a small moon, its systems running on minimal power. From this position, Captain Jiwoo and her crew watched the massive Kralvor fleet approach Proxima Colony. The settlement's lights were visible on the planet's night side, 3 million people unaware of the coming danger. Evacuation ships are still loading, Taeho reported quietly, as if the enemy might hear them across the vacuum of space. They've only managed to evacuate 20% of the population. Jiwoo's face was grim. She had spent the last 4 days observing the Kralvor, learning their patterns, searching for any weakness. The aliens still hadn't bothered to hunt down her ship, considering it too insignificant to waste resources on. Hae-won, status on the drive modifications? Jiwoo asked her chief engineer. Hae-won looked up from her workstation, dark circles under her eyes from days without proper sleep. The quantum resonance drive was never designed for this purpose, Captain. But the adjustments are complete. In theory, it should create a disruptive field that matches the exact frequency of their shield harmonics. In theory, Du Young repeated skeptically. It's the best chance we have, Jiwoo replied. If we wait for reinforcements from Earth, this colony will be destroyed. The bridge fell silent as the reality of their situation sank in. One small exploration vessel against an armada of warships. The lead Kralvor ships are starting their attack formation, Hyunsu reported from the science station. They'll be in firing range of the colony in 17 minutes. Jiwoo stood from her command chair. Power up all systems. Prepare the resonance drive for activation. As the Defiant came to life, Jiwoo addressed her crew. I know what I'm asking seems impossible. But the Kralvor have made one critical mistake, they've underestimated us. They think humans are weak because our ships are smaller. They think we're primitive because we value life. Today, we prove them wrong. The Defiant moved out from behind the moon, approaching the rear of the Kralvor formation. 3 enormous battlecruisers hung at the back of the fleet, coordinating the attack. They've detected us, Hyunsu said. But they're not responding. Still classified as a non-threat. Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. Move us within range of the command ships. Target the resonance field on the flagship. The Defiant glided closer to the alien vessels, appearing like a small fish swimming among sharks. When they reached optimal position, Jiwoo gave the order, activate the resonance drive. Hae-won pressed a sequence of commands. The ship vibrated as the modified drive activated, creating an invisible field of energy. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, the nearest Kralvor battlecruiser flickered. The glowing shield surrounding it wavered, became unstable, and suddenly collapsed. It worked! Hyunsu exclaimed. Their shields are down. Target their propulsion systems, Jiwoo ordered. Fire! The Defiant's weapons might have seemed small compared to the Kralvor arsenal, but with the alien shields disabled, they struck with surprising effectiveness. The battlecruiser's engines exploded in a burst of blue fire, leaving it drifting and powerless. Confusion spread through the Kralvor fleet. A second battlecruiser turned to face the unexpected threat, but Jiwoo was already adjusting the resonance field. Its shields failed just as quickly. They're talking about us now, Taeho said, listening to the intercepted communications. They sound confused. Angry. The Defiant danced between the massive ships, systematically targeting their engines and weapons. With each strike, the seemingly insignificant human vessel crippled another warship. After the third battlecruiser lost power, the rest of the fleet finally reacted. Smaller attack vessels broke formation, turning to engage the Defiant. "They've classified us as a priority target," Hyunsu reported. "All ships are now aware of our presence." A transmission suddenly came through, the harsh sounds of the Kralvor language translated by the ship's computer. "Human vessel. Your resistance is noted. Surrender now and your destruction will be quick." Jiwoo exchanged looks with her crew before replying, "This is Captain Jiwoo Park of the HSS Defiant. We will not surrender. We will not allow you to destroy our worlds. Reconsider your actions or face the consequences." The Kralvor commander's laughter echoed through the bridge. "One small ship threatens the mighty Kralvor? Perhaps humans are more amusing than we thought." Jiwoo cut the transmission. "They still don't understand. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Shift the resonance frequency to target their weapons systems." As the Defiant raced away from the approaching attack ships, the evacuation vessels from Proxima Colony escaped in the confusion. The human ship that had been ignored as insignificant had just changed the course of the battle, and perhaps the war. In the quiet town of Millbrook, Sarah Reynolds stood at the crossroads of her life, her hands trembling as she held the old photograph. The faded image captured a moment from her past that would change everything she thought she knew about her family. The photograph showed her grandfather standing next to a mysterious woman, their hands close but not touching. Behind them, a crumbling stone building suggested a story long buried and forgotten. Sarah had discovered this picture while cleaning out her grandmother's attic, tucked inside a worn leather journal that seemed to whisper secrets. For years, Sarah had lived a predictable life. She worked as a local librarian, spent weekends with her cat, and rarely ventured beyond the familiar streets of her small town. But this photograph challenged everything she understood about her family's history. Her grandmother, Elizabeth, had always been quiet about her husband's past. When Sarah would ask questions about her grandfather's life before their marriage, Elizabeth would change the subject or offer vague, non-committal answers. Now, with this photograph in her hands, Sarah realized there was much more to the story. The woman in the picture looked elegant, with sharp eyes and a posture that suggested strength. She wore a dark coat and stood slightly closer to Sarah's grandfather than a casual acquaintance would. Their connection seemed complex, not romantic, but definitely meaningful. Sarah began investigating. She started by researching the stone building in the background, comparing it to old town records and historical photographs. Her librarian skills proved useful as she dug deeper into local archives and historical documents. Slowly, a narrative began to emerge. Her grandfather, Thomas Reynolds, had been involved in something significant during the late 1940s. The mysterious woman appeared to be connected to a local historical event that had been nearly forgotten by the town. As she uncovered more details, Sarah discovered that the woman was Clara Bennett, a prominent local activist who had fought for workers' rights in the region's struggling manufacturing sector. Her grandfather had apparently been more than just a passive observer during those turbulent times. The research consumed Sarah. She spent nights poring over documents, connecting tiny pieces of information like a complex puzzle. Her colleagues at the library noticed her increased intensity, wondering what had sparked such passionate research. One evening, while reviewing old newspaper clippings, Sarah found a breakthrough. A small article mentioned her grandfather and Clara Bennett working together on a significant labor dispute that had nearly torn the town apart. Their collaboration had apparently prevented a violent confrontation and brought meaningful change to the local workforce. This discovery changed everything Sarah thought she knew about her grandfather. He was no longer just the quiet man who had worked at the local factory and enjoyed gardening. He was a man of principle, someone who had risked his reputation to stand up for what was right. The photograph became more than just an old picture. It represented a turning point not just in her grandfather's life, but in her understanding of her own family's history. Sarah realized that courage and commitment could come in quiet, unassuming packages. She decided to compile her findings into a small book, wanting to preserve this forgotten story. Her grandmother, now elderly and frail, listened as Sarah shared her discoveries. For the first time, Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears of both sadness and pride. The town library agreed to host a small presentation about the local labor history, with Sarah sharing her research. People who had lived in Millbrook for generations learned something new about their community's past. As Sarah stood at the podium, presenting her findings, she felt a connection to her grandfather she had never experienced before. The photograph that had started her journey now sat framed beside her, a silent witness to a story of quiet heroism. Her life had transformed. No longer was she the reserved librarian who rarely stepped outside her comfort zone. She had become a storyteller, uncovering hidden histories and giving voice to those who had been forgotten. The turning point was not just about discovering her grandfather's past. It was about Sarah finding her own path, her own courage to dig deeper, to question, and to understand the complex layers of human experience that exist just beneath the surface of everyday life. In a small town nestled between rolling hills, Mark Thompson stood alone against a powerful corporation that threatened to destroy his community. He was just a simple farmer, with weathered hands and a determined spirit, facing a battle that seemed impossible to win. The Greenfield Corporation had been buying land around the town, promising development and jobs. But Mark knew the truth. Their real plan was to build a massive industrial complex that would poison the local water and destroy the farmlands that had sustained generations of families. Most people in the town were afraid. They believed fighting the corporation was useless. Big companies always won, they said. Jobs were scarce, and the promise of economic growth was tempting. But Mark understood something deeper. This was about more than money. This was about protecting their home, their land, their way of life. Mark began gathering evidence. He took water samples, photographed the potential construction sites, and researched the corporation's environmental record. Late at night, he would sit at his kitchen table, surrounded by documents and maps, connecting the dots that others couldn't see. His first step was to talk to his neighbors. Initially, people were skeptical. Some even laughed at him. What can one farmer do against a big company, they would ask. But Mark was patient. He shared his research, showed them the potential risks, and slowly, people began to listen. The local newspaper initially ignored his story. But Mark was persistent. He wrote letters, made phone calls, and eventually caught the attention of a young journalist named Elena Rodriguez. She saw something special in Mark's determination and began investigating the corporation's plans. Together, they built a case. Elena's investigative skills combined with Mark's local knowledge created a powerful narrative. They discovered that the corporation had a history of environmental violations in other states. They found documents showing how the proposed industrial complex would destroy critical wildlife habitats and contaminate groundwater. As their evidence grew stronger, more townspeople joined Mark's cause. What started as a solo effort became a community movement. Farmers, teachers, small business owners, people from all walks of life began to stand together. The corporation didn't take this challenge lightly. They tried to intimidate Mark. They sent lawyers with threatening letters. They attempted to buy off local officials. But Mark remained calm and focused. He knew that their strength was in their unity and truth. A public hearing was scheduled, and the entire town showed up. Mark's presentation was simple but powerful. He didn't use fancy words or complicated arguments. He spoke from the heart, showing how the corporation's plans would destroy everything they loved about their community. The turning point came when Elena published a detailed investigative report. It revealed corruption within the corporation and highlighted the potential environmental disaster. The story went viral, attracting national media attention. Suddenly, the small town's fight became a symbol of resistance against corporate greed. Environmental groups, legal experts, and activists from across the country began supporting their cause. The corporation tried to fight back, but their power was crumbling. Government agencies started investigating their previous projects. Investors began pulling out. What seemed like an impossible battle was now being won by a community that refused to be silenced. Mark never sought personal fame. He wasn't looking to be a hero. He was simply a man who loved his land and believed in protecting his community. His quiet courage had inspired an entire town to stand up and fight. Months of struggle finally paid off. The corporation withdrew its plans. The industrial complex would not be built. The land would remain as it had been for generations, a place of farming, wildlife, and community. At a celebration in the town square, people praised Mark. But he remained humble. He knew the victory wasn't about him. It was about what people could achieve when they worked together, when they believed in something bigger than themselves. The story of Mark Thompson and his small town spread far and wide. It became a reminder that ordinary people could make extraordinary changes. One person's courage could indeed move mountains, challenge powerful institutions, and protect what truly mattered. As the sun set on the town that had fought and won, Mark looked out over the farmlands. He saw hope, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of a community that had discovered its own strength.